I'm here with Deborah Fallows, whose book, Dreaming in Chinese, is coming out shortly. It is about Mandarin lessons in life, love, and language.
This is true.
What did you learn about learning Chinese?
And
how long were you learning Chinese?
Okay, we were living in China for 3 years, and I was studying first for survival and later for interest, studying the language for 3 years and learning how to survive on the street.
Have you ever learned a language before?
Oh yes, I mean starting with English, and then I studied linguistics and languages all my life, so we could go to French, Swedish, German.
How is Chinese different?
Chinese is, on the one hand, very, very easy because there's no grammar. You don't have tenses, you don't have declensions. You have a very straightforward word order structure that you have to learn. And on the other hand, it's very difficult because there is such potential for homonyms, since there are only very simple syllables. One syllable can mean 20 different things, which is why you have tones, but it's really hard for foreigners to deal with that concept of tones making a meaningful difference in a word.
Okay, these
So
are technical differences of Chinese. What does Chinese teach us about life, love?
Chinese can be a really interesting way into what you see and interpret on the streets. For example, when I was first learning a bit of Chinese, I noticed that I was always feeling very rude when I was talking. If I didn't want something, if people were trying to sell me something, you just say, 不要, don't want. And your inclination as an English speaker is to say, oh no, thank you, I don't really want that right now, but it's okay, never mind, maybe next time, rather than 不要. So you feel there are no softeners in the language, and you feel very abrupt when you're doing it. So I would try to understand, why do I feel different things like this, or why am I noticing this kind of sensibility, and started talking to my Chinese friends about such an example, and reading my grammar books, and learned that for that particular case, for example, when you insert a softener like please or thank you, it actually has the effect in Chinese of putting some kind of social distance between you and the person next to you. So if I'm sitting next to my sister at dinner and I say 给我盐, give me the salt, with no pleases and thank yous, that's what you want to do because she's so close to me that that's how I behave. And if I say please give me the salt, I'm putting a distance between her and me.
So this is sort of the New Yorker connection to China and Chinese.
I guess it is. Yeah.
What about love?
Love is a really interesting example. 20 years ago when we were in China with our 2 little children, who are both boys, a Chinese woman said to me, which one do you love more? And I was horrified at that question. How can I possibly answer that? Of course I love both my children just the same. And so it started me on a mission when we came back to try to understand what the difference is between, what the sensibility is about love. Here's another example. We have a number of friends who are in relationships where there's a Chinese person and a Western person. The Chinese are always complaining that the Western half of that duo says, I love you, I love you, I love you all the time, and it has no meaning. On the other hand, the Western person is always getting irritated and frustrated because the Chinese half can never come to say I love you, whether it's in Chinese or in the Western language. And I think it goes back to a number of things. One is just the tradition about love and marriage in China, that sometimes marriage was for political reasons, sometimes it was for appropriateness. Now you have love for romantic reasons, but there's this strong overlay of parents still wanting to do arranged marriages for their children. If you're in the park in Shanghai on any weekend, you see parents with their signs describing their children. You know, I have a 20-year-old guy who's just graduated from college, type A blood, Han, he has a good company, and then people will drift over seeing that this might be a good match and so forth. So you've got kind of the boundaries of the meaning of love in flux in China in a way that I think they haven't been. There's also an explanation having to do with the tense of how you say I love you.
Did you ever resolve which child you love more?
Of course not.
What is the meaning of it then?
The meaning there. This is. I have no answer for that. It's just a question that is so unnerving to a Westerner that you can't even.
Still unnerving.
Clearly, of course, you can't possibly search for an answer. Which child do I love?
Do you have an explanation for a couple of things that are always I'm curious about in Chinese and Chinese language? Is the Chinese putting of names on the shapes of mountains, or Lion Rock Mountain, or
naming things.
And the second one would be the obsession about numbers and numbering.
Well, numbering is a lot with superstitious numbers and so forth, or the 5 great ways to.
Either one, actually. That's another one. Yeah, exactly.
I think there's a lot having to do with numbers, because certain numbers sound like good luck words or bad luck words. 4 also is a homonym for the word death. So you want to avoid at all costs anything having to do with 4. On the other hand, ba rhymes with fa, which means wealth. So anything having to do with the number 8, ba, is a good luck word.
So this is a Cockney rhyming slang connection.
Yeah.
So we've got New York.
You've got New York and you've got England. So you would naturally want to name something with good luck associated to it and wealth associated to it. So I think there's a lot of power in the inherent nature of the language that kind of drives you toward something that's good or bad when you're naming. Why not name something for good luck rather than bad luck? And the other part, Lion Rock Mountain, whatever it is, I think actually in America we do that all the time when you're naming new subdivisions. Pleasant Cherry Tree Grove subdivision. Maybe you just don't notice it as much because it's not in your own language, but it seems much more kind of romantic and charming when it's in another language and you can remember it, but it sounds kind of cliched and tedious when it's in English.
Okay, final question. Give your pitch for why people should learn Chinese. What can they get out of it?
Well, gosh, I mean, for starters, you can survive. Here's the best answer. You can get beyond the foreign tourist experience, and you can get beyond being kind of a mark as a foreigner into, however elusive or an illusion it is, to some kind of connection with a real exchange with a real person, even if it's a taxi driver. So I'm an advocate for any amount of language anywhere.
Okay, but and then unique to Chinese, however, what is unique to Chinese versus, because that would happen with Swedish or...
That happens with any language.
Yeah, that would happen with any language.
This is a universal language.
Okay, is there a unique aspect to Chinese then?
It's really fun because it's so different from English for English speakers and from any Western language speaker. It gives you a completely different perspective on how language works, because the structures without any tenses and declensions and so forth is so alien to what you think of as language. So it's getting yourself not only into a new language but out of what you think are the givens of language in general, just based on your own language.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.